Okay, so here we are. We have attendees, speakers, friends, and patrons joining us from the Symbolic World. About a week later, we all got to meet in person in Tarpon Springs. And here we are, just lot to process, lot to reflect. Really want to share those moments with each other, but then also with everybody that's listening, especially people who couldn't make it, or maybe people that were there and just want to reflect with us. So, how is everybody doing? We got Cameron, David, Cormac, Mark, JP, Basil, aka Neil DeGraide, and James Kourtides. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing well.
All right. Well, I know some
Finally
people are.
recovered all of my sleep.
Oh yeah, I know JP's on the go with us, man. Putting that symbolic life to effect.
It'd be really cool if he's actually sitting still and he just has a house that moves around him. That would be the best discovery of the year.
Yeah. Well, okay. So James is with us too. Good to see you, James.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm at the park with the kids, so I'll be popping in and out.
Man, you and JP. You and JP. All right. So here we go, guys. I mean, maybe Neil, I know you have a shorter amount of time before you have to depart, and there'll be people popping in and out. I mean, there's some other, speakers, attendees, symbolic art collective people that are even coming in and out. So settle in, folks. Neil, what was your impressions like? Here we are in Florida, and you made your way. You brought the whole band. You got to do the speaking. You got to do the live performance. I mean, what was all that like?
Yeah, it's weird. I'm honored just in general. I think I get invited because we have, this kind of body of work that's adjacent to what the symbolic world is doing. And also because we have a pretty large audience. So I get asked to participate in things sometimes, even though I'm a little bit of a dilettante compared to everyone else when it comes to the public speaking and the thinking. So of course, I always, I'm always humbled to be included in something like that. But also I like to be included in stuff like that because I love meeting people. I love hearing from people. I love the interchange. So if anybody noticed at the conference, I spent way more time in the audience talking to people than I did at any point on stage. So that's why I go to those things. So I guess if I was going to give you guys some unique perspective from my point, because I've done conferences and speaking at events before, and generally one of the things that always kind of irks me about my involvement is that there's a low hum of competitiveness between all the people involved. It's maybe not the first thing you notice about them, but if you start to pay attention, there's something like bubbling under the surface, some kind of clout war, because everybody wants to, they want to see their brand and their name and their notoriety go up. And sometimes we have this false equivalency of that it's like a zero-sum game where someone else, we need to rise above them or they need to go down. That's been every conference I've been experienced. I've just expected that's just part of the undertone of that conference. It was the level of competitiveness was below my ability to detect with this group. Totally. Everybody, I felt like everyone there we talked to, they're all rooting for everybody else. Especially the speakers. There was this nice dynamic of everybody when they saw someone do well or something go well. There was a sense that it was going well for you too, to be part of this. And so there may have been still some of this sort of like generalized envy or jealousy that exists between all people there and the speakers, but it was, again, below my level to detect. And that made me very comfortable to be a part of the event because you're never surrounded by enough people that are rooting for you. It's very hard to find people in anyone's life that are genuinely, when they hear good news about you, that are excited about it. And with this core group of people who are contributing to the symbolic world, all the way down to the bloggers or people who are just reposting stuff on socials, it really was like, of all the things I've ever done like this, it was the least competitive, most cooperative event I've ever participated in.
Yeah. Awesome.
The end. I'm gonna say over, or Roger, some kind of so I'm done talking.
Yeah,
that was it. Yeah,
that's awesome. The other person I want to hear from first too is James, because I don't know, James, if you were part of the planning committee or what, or found a way to convince them to do the event in your hometown in Florida and Tarpon Springs. That's where you grew up. So you're kind of like the secret host and knew exactly where to send everybody. So what was it like having, 300 of your friends come into town?
No, it was special, man. It was amazing. And I couldn't agree more. There was something different about this conference. Been to a lot of conferences with work and otherwise. There's always like a sterility to it. You're being shepherded in and out, breaks and whatnot. It kind of breaks the spirit of the thing. But I saw that kind of was the least thing I experienced at any conference ever. It's really special being with the people there. And it being in my hometown and having people and be able to present hospitality at my mom's place. It was really a special event that I'm still kind of processing and metabolizing. So I got to thank Neil for putting that together. Watching the band was awesome, just amazing, man. It was really a special event, all around, and to have it in my hometown, it was awesome. And the best part of it was meeting everybody. And I'm sorry if it's windy out here, and getting to break bread with everybody and the little groups. And it wasn't like, cliques of groups that broke off and stayed together the whole time. It just was intermingling, and everybody was so hospitable. There was the least amount of this competitiveness or this clout seeking that you see. That's just normal and organic, but that wasn't as present almost at all that I noticed as well. It was a special event with special people. And again, I got to thank you, Neil, for putting that together in my hometown, dude. Thank you.
Hey, thank your mom for opening up a restaurant to a massive number of people. That was like one of the great ways to kick off everybody coming into town. We all met up at, I think most of you were there. And, James' mom's restaurant. And your mom is adorable. She's like, my James is a good boy. He's such a good boy. And she's got a letter from James on the wall that he wrote her to encourage her that she's kept up. It was so homey and so earnest. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was really great. And somebody, like a group of 4 from the Symbolic World, came and had lunch there, and they left like $100 tip to the waitress. Everybody was so amazing and sweet there, dude. It's just wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, that was an
Whoever
accident.
that was.
I was looking for change. So if you let them know I'd like $90 back, that would be great.
Okay. I'll cash app you.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to hear from JP because I'm not sure. It looks like he's on daddy duty and he might have to break away any moment. So go for it, JP.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you'll hear my son grumbling in the background. But the greatest thing for me there was all the conversations we had around everything, around dinners, barbecues, these kinds of things. I think we really made the most of it. It seems like every night we were sleeping less and less because we knew we had just fewer and fewer opportunities to meet everyone. So just spent less and less of time socializing. Great conversations, good, also unlikely kinds of circles. It was I think one of the barbecues we did, we had both Jordan All and Jonathan there with Father Jonas, I think. So it was an unusual conversation that was really cool. And as Neil said, just the fact that everyone could get along so quickly, I found very encouraging. I met one guy actually flying back. There was another guy from Quebec who he hadn't reached out to me during the conference because I think he felt he didn't feel comfortable barging in when I was already discussing with a bunch of people. But I was alone at the airport by myself coming back, so we just said hi, and then we ended up talking until the plane took us to Canada. But he said that he felt like it was the real ecumenism where people can come in from different backgrounds and still have good discussions all around. And I think that's pretty impressive considering the amount of people who were there and also the amount of different backgrounds of the people who were there. So overall, I think that was the highlight for me. And in terms of, let's say, what I could bring back, I feel like we made some progress on some questions I found interesting, like how do we help land the Symbolic World in our different communities? It's great that we all get to meet in person and deal with people who get it quickly, but I think it'll be interesting to see how that can land in all of our own lives in our community. How can we somehow It can be with artists. I think there were some conferences to that effect, but also people who aren't artists. Like, how do you get to tell stories and share what we all learned there? So that's my quick takeaways.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the barbecues, and I just wanted to ping Cormac because he was also a centralizing figure because he made one of the best decisions of the whole weekend and to get an Airbnb really close to the summit, and it became kind of like the unofficial gathering place for so many of us. So Cormac, wanted to appreciate that. Maybe what's the story of getting the house and what was it like having everybody there?
It was just a guess. I figured it was September. I remember my receipts are for the 22nd. I remember it's because of the equinox. So I just jumped on it early, figuring there's going to be a crowd of people hitting Tarpon Springs. Want to get a good place. Didn't have anyone to share the house with when I first bought it, feeling that they will come. I have friends who are interested in going. I'll just spring for the whole thing and put it out there to let my friends know that they can come, and that happened, and it was a great location. And lots of parking space. There's a deck outside. There was a grill. It worked out really, really well, and I'm really, really happy with that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think especially I think what night number 2, or 1 or 2, and we had the deck with the table. David was grilling. People brought wine. Still, you have to forgive me. I'm still not quite used to this, but one of the fathers brought the finest whiskey of everybody, and I was a little bit scandalized by that because my Puritan background. So it's okay. I'm getting used to this. Getting used
I
to this.
explained it to you on the ride home. Derek, aka Deborah Fiedler.
Ah. Yeah, I share this account with my mama. Shout out to mama.
We get it. It's fine.
Yeah,
but
but then that was when, all of a sudden more and more people showed up. Hugh walked up. He came from England. Cameron, everybody here pretty much at one point. And then Jordan Hall walks up. He was kind of like the secret figure of the weekend too, kind of interacting behind the scenes, talking with as many people as he could. I don't think he went up on stage once, but he was a delight. And then Jonathan Pageau came over, and that conversation just went to the next level. It was just amazing. It's like the best. This almost like this is like a tribute to that group podcast. It was like the best podcast that no one will ever hear again.
What's funny is I walked by that house. I had parked to go to that Supra event that John Hears was doing late. And I heard all these voices. I'm like, I think I know these voices, but I was far enough away from the road trying to stare at you all through the shrubbery that I couldn't make anybody out. I'm like, I'm not going to just go crash a random party. But yeah, I mean, that was funny because I didn't realize that house was that close to the center of things. I wish I did. I wish I crashed. Sorry.
Next time, Neil. Yeah, and I was like the I don't know, vagabond of the weekend. I think I spent the night at a different place every single night. Just kind of went wherever the wind took me.
No, you were hard to find because every time I was leaving, I was like, oh, let me find Derek to see if he's crashing at our place. And then I couldn't find you.
Yeah.
And I was like, then you text me later, you were sleeping on somebody's couch or floor or something. I was like, yeah, well, there it is. To be younger than 50 again.
Yeah. And that was one of the highlights too, was after the Dirt Poor Robin's performance, which was fantastic, by the way, everything and more, being able to see you guys live. But then being able to kind of recap and debrief and hang out with you after the show with your DJ, who happens to be one of the most interesting guys ever. The man.
Oh, yeah. Insane. Yeah. Yeah. Mad Men kind of interesting though. Like, when you visit when you visit a mental health hospital and you talk to a really interesting person, like our DJ is it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Shout out to Fidesy. We love you.
Yeah, he's amazing.
But it was cool because you were among a few that got to bring your whole family too. And I'm a big family guy. I didn't get to bring my family. So I was like, kind of just like, can I just be your uncle? Same with James and Gareth. And it was like, I was just really drawn to the family. Appreciate that you shared them with everybody.
Oh yeah, they loved it. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm curious, what was their impression of the whole Symbolic Summit?
So they're funny. My two youngest just really wanted to meet Nicholas Kotar. you know, of all the people there, they wanted to meet him because they love his podcast. We both love the podcast. So if you don't listen to his podcast, it started out as In a Certain Kingdom, but now it's In a Certain Land, or it changed names because it has a slightly different theme each season. Great family listen. Like for someone like me, he gives me something, he gives them something. It's kind of like the Muppet Show was. You know what I mean? It had a little something for everybody. So does Nicholas Kotar. So they really wanted to meet him. They like that. They get more excited because they have so many Protestant friends. Like Ruslan is one of my friends. Ruslan Kitty has the channel, and then John showed up from What Do You Meme? That other channel. Those are two big channels, and they were just so excited to get to do lunch with them. Not because they were so interested in the people, but because all their friends are, and so they could go and kind of brag about it. So I thought that was cute. But no, they followed Kate around the whole weekend. If you noticed, like a bunch of little ducklings. Wherever she went, they went with her. We're like, guys, you can kind of roam around and do your thing, and it was nope. They just followed us around in our wake. So yeah, they loved it. I don't think they got much out of the speaking. My oldest did. She had no problem with that. Tracking with the speakers and stuff like that. But I think the younger ones, the Symbolic World Summit is maybe not in their lane entirely as far as engaging 1 hour long talks with strange question and answer sessions.
Yeah. You know, another thing that a few of the people here got to go to that I want to hear about is the Georgian dinner with all of the toasts and everything. So I don't know if that's like what happens at a Georgian table stays at a Georgian table, like Vegas or something, or if you could maybe share what that was all about. Because I know David, Neil, JP, I think you're among the ones.
I did sing a song that will forever stay at that table. I have a song. It's not an inappropriate song. You just might think it is. So I left that there, but outside of that, JP and David know exactly what I'm talking about. And Cormac,
the secret song.
Yeah, there's a secret. I sang a song I had in my back pocket for a long time. I think it's one of my better ones, but people take it the wrong way, so I leave it in my back pocket and where it should stay. But you have enough wine and you're having enough fun with some friends, and then Richard Rowland gets up and tells you a story about duck mating habits. It's going to take things off the rails. But besides that, no, it was a really wonderful night. I'd like to hear from everybody else on it. So John hears Topher, who you guys may have met there, Topher Grant, aka Christopher Grant, Father Silouan Justiniano, and I had a talk on his channel about the Supra and what it's like and what the benefits are. If you want to do a short version of that, kind of getting an overview of it on First Things Foundation. But I'd like to hear everybody else who attended, see what they thought of it for the first time, because I've been to a few of these now.
Yeah, I think it's really one of the things I bring back as sort of almost practical knowledge. I don't think I'll directly set up a Supra anytime soon because it's a bit involved and I will need to practice, I think. But what I was most impressed by was, I think it was the first time in my life where I was in a conversation that made sense with 25 people at the same time. Like there's a way to direct the attention towards certain topics, and those certain topics are threaded together in a way that makes sense. And people can sort of separate in small like normal discussions where you just talk with your neighbor from time to time. But by and large, it would be like often brought back towards the shared topics. And as I said, they would be weaved together throughout the night. And in a way that actually worked. I think like everyone enjoyed it. So that's really a good trick, I think, for group events in general, group conversations. So I'll actually think more about how I can use that in, let's say, smaller ways in different contexts. But for sure, that's a bit of practical knowledge that I was impressed by.
David, how about you?
Sorry, mic problem. So I agree with JP, and I wonder about maybe it's the fact that the whole conversation of the Supra is taking place with the succession of toasts, and each of those toasts are basically an act of gratitude. Like nobody said a negative toast. You're always celebrating something, you're always saying something positive, and so on and so forth. And I feel that might be one of the reasons why it's actually possible to get everybody on the same page if everybody's being is expressing gratitude and all towards kind of the same subject. It almost feels like when you're in church and everybody's singing and participating in the doxology or the worships or the songs and so on and so forth, it all goes in the same direction and it's all expressing gratitude towards God and so on. I feel there's like kind of something towards that. And I guess that's also why John from What Do You Memes, well, I think it's him. Maybe I'm misremembering, but he said at the end that if he really felt like the Supra was being part of the body of Christ, like if he could feel the friendship and the love and the charity between people and so on and so forth. And this is something that I also felt. It was really a great event. I really like participating in that. Yeah.
Cormac was there too. Don't let him off the hook. We need his insights.
I was let off the hook at the time. I didn't end up giving any toast. My experience was confronting being at a Supra for the first time and confronting my limitations as a speaker. Being a writer, not a speaker, I was like composing toast the whole time. And by the time I had something like I might have something that I can say, but the moment moved on. I look forward to future Supras where I can contribute more. But the ritual is immensely moving and very it's just the sense of communion that you get. It's marvelous, and I look forward to participating in more. And just this Georgian sense of hospitality is something that's a very important presence in my life, but from like a distance and secondhand. It's been immensely helpful for people who have been immensely helpful for me. And yet I've been so kind of scared of it because Georgian hospitality can be threatening to someone with health issues. When you're given wine, you have to drink it. When you're given food, you have to eat it. We had a little looser rules in our American Supra, but I was able to just touch the wine to my lips and I didn't have to drink it, which it's something I was very scared of. I approached John Heers beforehand to ask him for emergency advice, and it was very helpful. And just touching the wine to my lips each time, it felt like by the end of it, I felt like I was more human than I was when I began, and a little less scared of Georgian hospitality, even though I was just getting it secondhand through Americans and Canadians and such folk.
Yeah, so this isn't totally opaque to people who've never done one. When they think of toasting or raising a glass, we think of wedding toasts and whatnot. But I think David said it well in the sense that it's mostly something people want to remember or they were grateful for. Now, when you're with Martin Shaw, you know what Martin Shaw does? He raises the glass and he tells you a fairy tale. And Kate and I would sing a song, like an a cappella song, and so it was a rather strange. It was probably a rather strange version of the Supra that you guys get to attend. But generally, it's like a really fast forward liturgical life. It's like liturgy at a really fast tempo in the sense that someone unifies the group around a high purpose, right? Brings everybody together. And then everybody kind of scatters into conversation very often as a result of what the person just toasted to. And then there's a ringing of a bell, like the dinging of a glass. And, the tamada gives that person a chance to toast. And then we all come back together. And then we all scatter, and it creates this kind of strange like harmonization in the sense that we're all reacting to the same things. The one Friday night was different that I stopped in on. I didn't stay or really participate. I just kind of distracted Father Silouan from it and talked with him. But the one of the things that we didn't anticipate, you might have seen this a little bit in the question and answer times, is that most of the audience there has thinking about things as they're hearing talks, and they're forming thoughts and they're forming opinions, and and so the Supra on Friday night was the most toast heavy Supra I'd seen, and I hadn't seen that many. I mean, I've only been to 4 or 5, but it was nonstop ding 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 ding. So it didn't have that same flow that we experienced because everybody had something they wanted to say, which was a good thing because that meant the conference was enacting, getting the wheels turning and enacting some thoughts. But it was a little bit of a drag on the Supra in the sense that you didn't have that liturgical flow of the bell ringing, one person talking, everybody reacting and spreading out and then being gathered again. It was just constantly, it was like going from one service to another. So I thought that was interesting.
I mean, how many toasts did you guys do?
Well, they do a lot.
70 maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many?
70 would be a fair guess. I think that's what he said. But you're not drinking the whole glass every time.
I was only touching it to my lips each time,
Okay.
and I felt buzzed.
Oh, man.
Just doing that.
Right.
I was gonna say, could you even drink 70 glasses of water in an evening? I mean, that's
No, you sip. You sip. There are certain things, like there's this thing, what the heck is it called? Like Vaktangui or some kind of, Georgian name for this thing where you lock arms and you have these horns. You might have seen a video going around online of Jonathan and Martin doing this. I did with other people, and they'll, so John Hears knows me, so he'll pour gasoline in there virtually. I don't know what the heck the stuff is. It's like this, it's like, I don't even know. It's like moonshine from Georgia. I have a super high tolerance because I act drunk all the time anyway, so nobody can tell. So that, but dude, if you're not ready for that, you have to drink the whole thing because you're supposed to pour it out on someone's head. So I don't drink any of the whole toast except for that one. So after doing a couple, I with all the food and measure yourself, I don't really notice anything except that I'm even more friendly. I've only seen people really get inebriated a couple of times, and it's a handful of people that probably have a problem with that already. I don't know. So might not, if you're in AA, maybe don't attend to Supra right away. Right.
not the place. Not the place.
Not the best place.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ping James because there's a few other cool things that were happening in the place of Tarpon Springs, because I mean, here we are, we're back to the virtual realm, we're back to Zoom, YouTube and podcasting and all of that. And so really the highlight was anything that had to do with face-to-face, place-based interaction. And like for me, I left my laptop at home. I was like, oh, I could get all this work done and I could do this and that. And then prayed about it. I was like, no, it's all about the place and the faces. And so it was so fortunate to have James because, I mean, James, where were some of the other places that we got to go in Tarpon Springs and the surrounding area that people really benefited from?
Yeah, it was one of the highlights for me again was the when I was able to bring a group of went to St. Michael's Shrine where can you guys hear me? I know it's windy. We got to St. Michael's Shrine. I brought like a group of 4 people, like 3-4 times, which is really cool. We got to go to this park here. Got the kids here with me.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, we went to the beach. We went down to the sponge docks. So we were able to have a group go to dinner at Hellas and had some broiled octopus and some smelt. It was just wonderful. That was the best part of it.
Yeah. Did everybody get to go to St. Michael's Shrine? Yeah, I was fortunate to be with James because we just had gone to it, and then we would go back to meet with the groups, and then we would be talking with someone else, and it would come up, and then like, I want to go see it, and then James would just, okay, let's go right now, let's go see it again. I don't know, you must have seen it like 3 times in one day.
We got to bring Jordan Hall there, which was cool. We went after breakfast and went and sat and prayed in there. Took some pictures in there with him. It was cool. It was like, he just kept going with groups and he was quiet. He sat in the back of the room the whole time, he even sat on the floor in the back there and just kind of took it in. And we went and had lunch together, the 4 of us, right? And he was kind of commented on the same kind of vibe there that, these conferences have no matter what the intention is to fall flat because just the nature of a conference. But I think because it was at, that convention center that's tied to the Orthodox Church there, and with the people around there, that made it really something really cool and unique. And I hope there's more. So are there plans to have more regional or yearly or anything like that?
Well, what's your guys' impression? How soon do you think would be too soon, and how long would be too long before we did another conference?
Yeah. Hey, Cameron, Mark, why don't you weigh in?
Yeah. Man, I really loved just every minute of that whole weekend. And just to reiterate what Neil said in the beginning, like there's some of the friendliest, kindest people I've ever met. And one of the things that also struck me, I've been to other conferences too. And one of the biggest impacts that a lot of the speakers and attendees had, we've all met each other online a lot. We've interacted there. Everyone I met was exactly the same person that you interacted with online and in person, which, for all of you who know, living in this digital age, that's not always the case with a lot of people, where you get one person on the internet and a totally different person when you meet them in real life. And Neil, I mean, you were one of the biggest examples like that. Like you said, we've been interacting online here and there for the past couple of years, but you know, every one of the speakers, every one of the attendees was super friendly, the exact same person that you interact with online, which just goes to show that these were some of the realest human beings that I'd ever gotten to meet. And so just to answer your question, Neil, I think, you know, doing it again every year would be a dream. I would love to. I would certainly go back next year. And if it was longer than 2 years, I would be very sad. So just to give you a little time from there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan kind of told us that he was not sure about doing it again, but then, well, that's what he was thinking until he kind of got to see everyone and the kind of community that formed, and that changed his mind a little. So yeah, I would probably have the same answer as Cameron. Like I would kind of understand if next year was too soon, but 2 years would be pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know if I could afford to go every year, but at least every couple of years.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Just wanted to let you guys know that Jordan Hall joined us. It was perfect timing because James just gave you a very kind and friendly introduction, Jordan.
Thank you. I can't seem to get my camera to work, so you'll have to hear my voice for a little bit, but I'm working.
You have a good profile picture. Looks great.
Yeah. Well, I liked you had a kind of like a finger puppet version of your camera at first. Just, you know, paint a little face, you know how you do it, you know, your thumb or something, and just use that. That'll be fine.
Why aren't you working?
Yeah.
But Cameron, just to jump on your point, that's
the
ahead. Craziest thing, like you said, like how everybody is the same person in person. Even Jordan Peterson's like that. I mean, it almost to a fault, because like, you know, the first time I got to be around him. So a lot of my fan base really hates that I don't like just take a poop on him every time his name is mentioned. Like I honestly got messages from people that were like, why didn't you unplug and leave when he came in? I was like, what about the other people there? Like, you're going to give Jordan Peterson that much power to like shut down a whole show? It's like, it was like the weirdest politicized response to that. And, but talking to him in person, I'm like, man, he's actually pretty humble. Like he'll go into YouTube video, like rants to you, and it's all content you've heard before. You're like, hey, I've watched your videos. We can go to the next part of the conversation, Jordan. But also, if you have something to bring up with him as a problem, he'll sit there and listen humbly. He doesn't know who you are. Like you could, some random guy at a bar could bring something up to him and he'd probably talk to him. So the authenticity of everybody, that they really haven't created an alternate persona, was very encouraging. Yeah. That I met and saw.
Yeah, and like you said, Neil, you know, I was talking to a few of the other attendees and everybody loved all of the talks, but I think there was this kind of agreement that if you had been following Jonathan or Jordan or anybody for a while, there was a lot of things that you may have heard before. And for a lot of people, while the talks were all fantastic and amazing, the thing that people really enjoyed doing was just talking to all of the speakers, like over lunch and just hanging out. And that to me is a testament. Like, it's not just about the conference. It's not just about the speakers. It's not just about the event. It's really about communion and actually getting to know people in real life.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great point. Derek, if I can jump in, because I have to go in a second.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, because, well, there is, you know, so for Jordan Peterson, if he's at an event, he's going to need more security. You don't know what kind of people are after him. He has a lot of enemies in the world, as it seems to have way more friends. But, you know, so there is like a kind of distance he has between the audience and himself, and he can't really break that down without causing a different type of chaos. But I've always felt it was really important to, you know, like not maintain sort of an artificial clout of inaccessibility, where people are like respect someone and they seem more important because they're inaccessible. I hate that. I hate that that's kind of a hack that you can do. So I really work hard on, because I actually, it's not something hard for me to do either, because I'm clearly an extrovert and I like people. So I think the best way to have the authority to speak to people is because you spend your time with them, not because you're inaccessible to them and you just come up and speak at them. And so there are varying degrees of that between the conference speakers, depending on their personality types. But I saw everyone there, even Jordan Peterson, spend time with people, talk to people, look them in the eye, listen closely. You know, I get to see some people that I've been following us for, you know, a decade, and that was incredible. So I think that I think that what I liked about the conference as well is that was people wanted to gain their authority to go up on stage because they showed that they actually cared. I mean, Richard Rowlands, for a philologist, which you would think would just be a heartless, cold, dead occupation, or you might falsely think that. He is so warm and fatherly and encouraging in person. And so almost everybody there seemed to have this kind of contradiction where they were showing you that these things don't exist on a balance, that you can be both things at the same time, that you can command authority and you can put your arm around people and be on their level, because that's the reality is you are on their level, but you have an area of domain that they're interested in, or a domain that they're interested in. So that was fun for me. I'm glad you brought that up, Cameron. Thanks.
Okay.
So I have to go, Bo. I'm so sorry. I wish, I found out about this yesterday, but I'm going to listen to the rest of you guys. I want to hear what you have to say online. And I'm especially excited about that secret that Derek's going to reveal later. I said that as clickbait so people would stay in the video who came for me. Just kidding. All right, catch you guys later.
See you, Neil.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Jordan, you were one of the pleasant surprises of the weekend. It was just a delight to talk with you. What are some of your impressions of the Symbolic World Summit?
Just a quick question. Who's Neil?
Neil DeGraide, aka Basil of Dirt Poor Robins.
Ah, he was the singer up on the stage?
Yep.
Okay.
The bearded one.
Got it.
I think he won he was in the running for the greatest beard of the weekend. I don't know. Nate from Real Country probably took it though. Maybe Cormac.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be hard to beat Cormac.
That should be the like one of the things that happens at the next one.
We were supposed to have a beard pageant, but it never happened. Disappointed. I was hoping to win the sash.
Add it for the next one.
So yeah, so my sense of it, well, actually, in the back of my mind, I kept having a curiosity of like, what was the vibe at the Council of Nicaea? Was there some sense that like, some of the guys are like a little bit standoffish? There's like a velvet rope around, I don't know any of these guys' names, but some famous guy, some famous archbishop or theologian, or was it, everybody's kind of, hey, what's going on? It's been a long time. I've read your letters, I read your epistles, but never actually seen you. The council of Tarpon Springs feels like the sensibility that is being called for.
Good thing we didn't have to make decisions about heresies. Although, I don't know, Jordan Peterson's jacket was probably one among them.
Yeah, there were decisions about heresies being made all the time. The good news is that in general, they were being made somewhat positively.
Yeah. I
only got excommunicated twice. So that was actually pretty good.
Anybody get slapped that I know of?
Lovingly. Like, hey, stop that silliness. What I noticed, the only thing that I noticed was like a little bit of a, like out of, how do I say it right? Like off, maybe, is what he mentioned earlier, which is that Jordan Peterson was the only person who had a distortion field wrapped around them. Like everybody else, even Jonathan, and particularly Jonathan, because he was the one person where that sense of centrality or separateness would have naturally been there. And of course, there was a difference because obviously he had scarcer time. But I think because he hasn't gone through the portal of becoming famous, he still doesn't have shields up. And so you were interacting with him. I mean, when he sat around with us in that circle, he was, first among equals, whatever the right phrase is. Where JP, when I would, the time I got to meet with him, I've met a lot of famous people, and I've met a lot of really rich people too. And I can tell when somebody's got layers of protection around them because they just have to, because everybody's constantly coming up to them, and even just a small amount of somebody wanting something from you, it ultimately drains you. And so to some sense, if we're thinking about what would make it better, I would just have not that. I wouldn't have invited him at the end of the day. Not anything bad about him, but just because that characteristic is just not going to work. I go the opposite way and only invite people who are able to participate in a fully symmetric fashion with everybody else, and noticing that at certain points, different people need to be at the top of the hierarchy, but at other points, other people need to be at the top of the hierarchy, but everybody's fundamentally grounded in relationship.
Jordan, that's a good symbolic analysis. You're fitting right in.
Nice. I've been practicing.
Yeah. I mean, anybody else feeling that as well?
Well, if I can pitch in, not necessarily on Jordan Peterson, but as far as Jonathan goes,
Yeah.
Like we mentioned earlier, a lot of people are aware at the summit, their continuity of their, let's say, internet personality or something like that. Jonathan is very outspoken when he speaks online and so on. And I'm not saying he's not outspoken in real life, but he's very, very humble. Like when you see him in real person, he's always nice, always humble. And it's in the small things, for example, like at the parish, for example, when we do the agape, for example, well, he's going to be the first one to start cleaning and picking up the tables and the chair. He's not going to ask someone else to do it or whatever. You know, he's really the first one to do stuff to help out others. He never lectures anybody on anything. He's always just, you know, there and listening and so on and so forth. So I think that this helps him when there are events like that where he can just have his own real self and being humble enough so that he's on our level, like Jordan said. So
Yeah.
Maybe one question I would have related to community, because I wasn't there on Sunday, I flew back. And I was wondering what was the vibe like for the people who went to the cathedral to celebrate together? Did it feel like some natural continuation of the summit, or like did it feel separate, or in general? I'm curious.
Well, there was kind of two groups, I think, because most of us guys in here decided to go to a different cathedral because we thought the other one would be too packed. Just for other people listening, there was one cathedral basically right next to the community hall that the summit was at, and so for Vespers on Saturday night, everyone went there. But then, yeah, on Sunday morning, some of us went to this other one. It surprisingly turned out that a lot of people had the same idea, and like we ended up like with basically all the speakers went to the same church that we went to.
Was that coordinated, or did just separate groups decide to do that, like kind of simultaneously?
Yeah, I think that was just a so-called coincidence. But so yeah, I don't know. We can't really comment because we didn't have that experience of everyone or every Orthodox person from the summit going to the liturgy on Sunday, the same liturgy. But yeah.
well, it was the same liturgy in a sense, you know.
Yeah, of
We're all
course.
participating in the same liturgy, so it doesn't matter really where we are. And I guess it depends on people. Like for me personally, I had commissioned an icon from Mark Harry here, and he had brought it to me on the first day, on the Wednesday. And so for me to kind of close this whole cycle by having it consecrated on Sunday and then leaving with it, for me at least, it felt everything was, you know, the Sunday was the true ending, you know.
You know, James and I were planning to go to a different liturgy, and then kind of last minute got redirected to this place. I don't know, James, if you wanted to share how that moment was meaningful for you.
Yeah, that was great. So the cathedral that we went to is the Holy Trinity Orthodox Church in Clearwater, and it was I haven't been there. That's the church that I was baptized in, and I went with my grandma and grandpa the first 12 years of my life. Got perfect attendance. Used to go all the time, and then at 13 I stopped going, and then haven't been back really since. And when I came back, I started going to St. Nicholas and then St. George, which is closer by me. So it was really the first time in about 2 decades I stepped foot back in that church. And it was really special. It was really great. I got to see some people that I know that I haven't met in a while. I haven't seen in a while. It was really cool to be there with you guys. I'm actually going to go meet with the priest there because it's not that far from my house, and I feel called to kind of make that my home parish. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. It was really special, you know, and I appreciate that very much.
Wow. And then Jordan, I know you made the effort to go back to your home church by Sunday. Did you make it there in time?
I did. I made it back.
right.
It's, one of the funny things that was there was that at least 5 people said that I looked younger,
Yeah.
notably younger. I'm like, huh, wow, that's neat.
Yeah.
I've lost it. I look older again. So it only lasted for a while. We gotta, more liturgy, I guess.
Jordan, you had this aliveness about you. Derek and I think others commented, and you seemed like you were kind of floating. You had this shine in your face, which was pretty neat to see. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a wonderful time, a wonderful experience, and I felt both invited and called to share. In some sense, to share, like literally just say the living water with my church, and then to the extent that it was proper, maybe certain pieces of things. We had a watch party for Jonathan's conversation, I guess 2 nights ago. So a number of folks are interested, and I wasn't able even to even vaguely do justice to Father DeYoung's talk. So I'm gonna have to invite people to watch that too. That's almost like I'm asking them to help me, like come just like sit around me, like lay hands, whatever it needs to be, so I can listen to what he has to say properly. It's so intense. Yeah, but it was glorious.
I
Yeah.
thought it was kind of symbolically significant that they did the conference from Thursday to Saturday instead of Friday to Sunday, like a lot of conferences tend to be. And I think it goes back to what Neil and others were saying about the real focus of the conference not really being the conference itself, but pointing towards something else. Like JP, I had to leave on Saturday, so I wasn't around on Sunday. But I think the fact that they left Sunday open for everybody to kind of attend liturgy together who was still in town was kind of, in a sense, a little microcosm of the whole point of the summit, which was pointing towards Christ, pointing towards something else, and not just being this like self-contained thing all about the speakers, all about, whatever, but actually bringing people into communion. And then once they're together, pointing them towards what actually matters.
It reminded me as a parent of having like very directed rule time of like, here's the itinerary, this is where you go, this is what you do. And then having those moments where you like step back and just allow them to make their own choices. And it was Sunday felt like that, where I was like, okay, what are you guys gonna do? You really gonna, gather people around the dinner table? Which shout out to James, he totally did that. Invited his neighbors over. That was awesome. Are you really gonna be, sharing stories with one another? Are you gonna attend liturgy together? And so that's what Sunday felt like me. It was just like, this isn't some like guided event thing. This is like felt like family, felt like real life, and this is what we're choosing to do.
Yeah, and I felt that this would maybe apply more to Orthodox people, but the summit was timed really perfectly with the liturgical calendar because even just the fact that it was the week of the publican and the Pharisee, so we didn't have to worry about fasting on Wednesday and Friday. That was one thing that I think kind of helps to be a bit looser and kind of be hospitable with people. But also, I don't know about you guys or the other Orthodox people in this call, but I feel like really ready for Lent now, because going there and just being with people and seeing what this like real communion with real people is like, compared to some of the online Twitter internet orthodoxy, it was just like such a strong contrast. And I feel like really ready now to just kind of like let that go for Lent and just be a lot more present in the real world and not need to kind of be so stimulated by these online things.
Let that go in order to go to war. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm really gearing up for Lent here, and that again, getting back to that Orthodox church that I fell away from, and it was on the day of the reading was the prodigal son return, so it was a lot of symbolic kind of influence there, and I'm really geared up to get my family ready for Lent here. And I'm not a good Christian when it comes to attending church regularly. Like when I started getting back into the church after 2 decades of falling away. I started going to St. Nicholas, and then St. George was closer, and I started going, but I didn't really get connected into the community there. So it's been real sporadic. But I feel really, really inspired to use this time and this time of Lent, and right before coming up to Lent here is real special to really get back into the rhythm there. I feel it's really important for me right now for that to happen, and that was a good kind of inspirational few days to make that happen. So God willing, pray for me, please.
Yeah.
Maybe bouncing back on some of the liturgical aspects and bringing things to a close, like David mentioned with his icon. A cool thing that happened, and I forgot to mention it when we were talking about the Georgian dinner, was that there was someone who submitted an article on the blog for like analyzing the Supra, the Georgian dinner, towards the beginning of the blog, like towards the very beginning. So that would be 4 years ago. And Garrett and I edited that article, never thinking we would ever participate in one of those. And then Jonathan ended up inviting us just a few hours before it happened. And the author of the article was there too. He was the one organizing the dinner even. So it was really cool to sort of bring things to a close. And like next morning I was flying out back to Canada. So just a nice loop of bringing to like an embodied event the stuff that I've been doing online in the way for the last 4 years.
Man, that is awesome. Yeah, way to like full circle. What a full circle moment. You know, another thing that really stood out to me was the stuff that people brought, or the stuff that people exchanged, you know, like the physical media. You know, like we had, of course, all of the vendors that brought things, which we only had 2 vendors, but oh my gosh, like there were 2 book vendors, 8th Day Publishing, St. Vlad Press. Yeah, and it was just like, see, all of these I brought home. My wife is like, what are you, like, we have no book budget left. What are you doing? She put her foot down definitively. And then, yes, Hugh. All right, thank you, David, showing. So Hugh brought a gift that he gave out to everybody. And it was his bestiary that he designed and put together. And he was just handing them out to folks. And what a blessing that was. I'll show a few more. You guys can jump in. David Flores, he brought his artwork as well. This is an article art project that he and I are going to do this year on King David and his dynasty. And he gave me a copy there. That was a pleasant surprise. I brought natural, how would you say, relics, precious stones from my region of the world that was produced by volcanoes. And then, oh, of course, Colin. So Colin Miller brought all of his hand-bound books that he handcrafted, and I got to see the one that he and I got to do together, the Unravel one, for the first time, like actually hold the book for the first time, the prototype that we've made. And then he brought the only hardbound language of creation book that's in existence that we know of. And in the moment, like I was like, I just want to sign it. And then a few other people were like, I want to sign it too. And one after the other, it became like the yearbook of the event. It was really, really special. And you see, you know, he got all of us to sign it, probably like 100 people. I don't know. Jonathan Pageau signed it. It was Vesper. Lots of the speakers signed it. It was a very, very precious, you know, thing that we all got to exchange and participate in.
Which reminds me, I need to find a way to negotiate with you to get a copy of that Arrival book.
Oh, yes, we'll be in touch with that. Yeah, Colin and I are still sorting out how we want to do that.
These tokens are important for making the transition. That's what I'm thinking about now. Is like as great as it is seeing you guys and talking with you, we're back on screens again. It's not the same as the conference. This isn't good. Cameron talked about how everyone was just the same in person. I really picked up on how uncannily different people were just in 3 dimensions and huggable. I can't hug you right now.
Cormac, you are a really good hugger. Just
Oh, thank you. So getting back into the grind of things, I've been reeling all week, just trying to rein in my mind again. It's been too exciting, too inspiring trying to be productive again. It's hard. And then try to how to build on the relationships that that were formed from people I first met, and expanding the prayer list to include new souls on there. It's something I'm working on, and I'm wondering what your guys' insight is into that.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. It's hard, making these new friendships and then realizing it's probably going to be a while before we actually see each other in person. I know some of you are a little closer to me, Cormac's a few hours from me, so definitely possible to see him, but some of you are in, the UK or in Canada or on the other side of the country like Derek. And, it's awesome building these new relationships and starting, new in real life friendships, but then knowing that it's going to be quite a bit of time before you actually get to share space again. It's quite difficult. And yeah, like Cormac said, these digital mediums are a bit of a band-aid, but there's certainly no replacement for actually getting to be with people, to hug them, to shake their hand, to speak with them. So, in one sense, it's a little bittersweet going and meeting up with each other, but then having to leave one another again, it's quite painful, actually.
Yeah.
We can see each other this summer, Cam, coming up, because I'm going to go to Pennsylvania again this summer to see my wife's families, and I was going to meet Cormac, so if you're close, we can still meet in person. But it's something I've been thinking about too, and I think the way I tend to see it is goes a bit to what Jordan was saying earlier, the fathers or the apostles. I see us as working together, but in very different places. I think we all stumbled upon Jonathan's work online, and we see that it's helpful for us. But the challenge is, I think for a lot of people at this stage, the challenge is more to share it with others and find ways for this to help others, more so than us understanding it more. I think lots of us get it at this stage, and there's always more you can learn, but we get diminishing returns, of course. And at a certain point, the challenge is more how to share what we have with others, more so than growing ourselves. And I see us all as working on this in parallel. And there's some of this we do online, we can write articles and talk to each other and do research and so on. But I think a lot of it is we have to all run our local experiments and attempts at sharing and helping people grow together. So I think a lot of the interactions we will have over the last few years online are going to be about how does this land in practice in your community? Is there stuff I can learn from that to help with my community, and vice versa? So I feel like we're just getting back to work in a way. The summit was a great social event for us, something we loved, and getting back together. But I feel like we have to get back to real life and work.
Yeah, JP, I think that's a great point. And I feel like that it was a sort of seed planting or a sowing event, because there was a lot of people that I know, my mom's place and around the church and around the community, that pinged me on Facebook. Hey, can you send me, what was this about? Can you send me some material? Can you send me some podcasts? I mean, probably 3 or 4 people, a couple of that I haven't talked to in a while, and I went to my mom's research a couple other times and just had, an hour length conversations with folks about kind of what it was. Because when they ask you, if somebody's completely unfamiliar with it, when you try to tell them what it's about, it's an interesting thing to partake in. It's connected with the church, but not exactly. And it's about, kind of understanding things in a certain way. We all feel what's happening in the world, and that opens up a space for conversation. And I think that we can all, I'm going to be intentional about every Sunday lighting a candle for the group there when we go to church. That's a time we can all remember and reflect and kind of be together again, in the body of Christ as we go to church. So I'm going to make that an intentional thing here as we get into Lent, so we can be together at that time, in a sense. And kind of the through line of the whole conference, and even after it, was this term liturgical. It was liturgical because everybody that I spoke to said the speakers were great, really wonderful, but the people, getting together with people and getting to, liturgy is the work of the people, was really the most kind of special and profound thing. And I had several conversations with people, in the conference and out of the conference, and there was this strange convergence of a crisis that happened in their life, that happened in my own life around 2014 to 2016. everybody has a story that says something unraveled, something fell apart, some event happened around that time. And then I found Jordan Peterson, or whatever it is, Jonathan Pageau, whatever it is from there. So I found that interesting. I don't know if you guys have noticed that there was something that happened around that time. Maybe it was the coming online of Jordan Peterson, but it seems like event happened, something changed, previous life changed, and then I was on this path. That's the kind of pattern I perceive. I don't know if you guys perceive that.
I heard a lot of that as well. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The stories and the interactions with people were really I felt really encouraged. And I don't and I felt really like I identified that several other people I talked to, it's almost like needed to pick me up. I don't know about you guys, but like so personally, I'll give two examples. Personally, like you write articles, you post things on YouTube, right? And you look at the analytics of YouTube Studio, and you see, wow, this video did really great, and this one did not so well. And you start like the doubt thoughts come in, and they start like kind of like picking away at you. It's like, oh, they don't really want to hear it, one of my least popular videos, you're like, man, why I'm not even going to post stuff like that anymore. Forget it. It's like it's not bringing any ad revenue, it's not bringing in this. I don't know what happened, but it's like significantly lower. But then I go to talk with people in person at the summit, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite videos. I'm so glad you posted it. And I'm like, oh, yes. And so then it's like kind of like a return to the heart of the content of what I'm doing, what we're doing, of like, no, this is making a difference. Try to get beyond the veil of the algorithm and the data and understand that we're making a difference with helping people see, but then, at the heart level, seeing people's lives transformed it goes way beyond just the algorithmic data. Then the other example is having heart-to-heart talks with some of the other artists in our group, and just having this sense of you could tell the coming in that they weren't coming in with a whole lot of gas left in the tank. I'll just say it that way. And so by just being in that position of saying, dude, I want you to bring your art. Why didn't you bring your art? Why didn't you bring this? I like it. I want to see more of it. I am a fan. And just seeing, kind of like their spirit start glowing a little bit more. And I know I felt that over and again in so many ways. And, how about you guys? Do you feel energized by the conversations as far as like the work that you do and wanting to get after it after being together?
I certainly did. Someone mentioned earlier, like joked about how it's a shame that that one night that Jonathan came by the Airbnb that we didn't have it, recorded as like lost conversation, so to speak. I think it's funny because in a lot of ways, because of the world that we live in and people creating content and trying to share it and stuff, sometimes we can be a little focused on how many people are listening and how many views or clicks does this post get or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, I've listened to so many podcasts in my life, but I really am not going to remember most of them as my life goes on. But I'm going to remember the conversation that we had that night with Jonathan and with all of you for the rest of my life, probably. We touched on some pretty important stuff, some pretty crazy stuff. But even if what we were talking about wasn't all that important or interesting, just being there in person makes it so much more meaningful and impactful to all of us, and actually having a real embodied memory to go back to. I mean, that's what's really important. And I don't remember who said this, but I heard one time like someone was trying to record a podcast with somebody and they realized after they were done that it wasn't actually recorded. And it's like, oh man, how could we make that mistake? What a shame. And then I think their guest said something like, well, if this conversation wasn't worth just having with just you and I, then what was the point in even having it? And I think that was something that really resonated with me all weekend. There was a lot of tiny little conversations that we had with people one-on-one or in a small group. And I mean, that's really true. Like all of these conversations mean so much, even though they only involve a couple of people. And they're certainly much more meaningful and memories that will carry with us for years. Whereas, there can be 2-hour-long podcast episodes that like go in and out of your brain and within 24 hours. And you just don't even remember, even if it was like a really important episode, they were talking about some big, world changing topic. At the end of the day, like those one-on-one human interactions are what we actually live on, and they're what actually fills our tank and gives us, you know, the energy to keep going. And maybe that's why so many people were showing up to the conference feeling kind of depleted, because we put so much energy, and I'm really chiding myself here, not anyone in particular. Like, I put so much energy into consuming things from certain creators or certain thinkers that I really enjoy, because there's sort of this Gnostic fixation on having the right ideas and figuring everything out in your head. But at the end of the day, it's like, go talk to a friend, go get a cup of coffee, go share a meal with somebody. And that is actually what fills you up, not consuming content. Not that this stuff isn't important, it's great, but we got to remember what's actually meaningful. And this weekend certainly did that for me. It reminded me that at the end of the day, these ideas, they're not nearly as important as just having real conversations with people.
Yeah, it seemed like we were really sent back on mission. Like, the artistic speakers told us to go create art, and then the others told us to go like build communities. So it seemed like we went there for the ideas maybe, but like in the ideas, what we got was a message to send us back out in mission to build stuff.
Yeah, that was one of the takeaways, or one of the homework assignments, right? Was be famous for within 5 miles of your home. Be famous within 5 miles. What were some of the other ones?
Learn a poem, learn a story too. But to harken back on what you said, Derek, personally, and this is really personal and selfish in a sense, but this conference really helped me see the value of what we do. And it kind of looks on the surface that I'm going to go in a different direction than Cameron, but actually I think it's kind of the same direction. But I've been writing a couple of articles for the Symbolic World blog for years now. And I've always done it in a kind of, I don't know what the proper English word is for that, but kind of a I don't care way. Not in the sense that I don't care about what I'm writing, but I don't care about what's going to happen with what I'm writing. And after a while, it's okay to do that, because I really think that we should don't attach too much of our own self to our writings and ideas and so on. But at some point, it does beg the question of, if I don't care, why do I bother? So I think this conversation was really an eye-opener for me, because at some point there was one of the guys that went to the house with us and so on, Robert, that brought up one of the articles I had written, not knowing that I had written it, and he spoke about it, and he said, he really liked it and so on and so forth. And just having an impact on one person for me was worth, pursuing whatever writing or podcasting or whatever we do. Because the goal is not necessarily I'm gonna be writing the next book that's gonna change 1 million lives. That's not me. If I can just influence one person in going towards, let's say, a positive direction, then for me that's enough. That's enough that I spend 40 hours researching and writing an article and so on and so forth. And yeah, so for me at least, coming back, I feel really reinvigorated to pursue a bit more writing. Unfortunately, that means, Michael, you have to edit more of my weird English taken from French, but that's how it is. So yeah, for me at least, it was really good for them.
Which article was it, David?
Was the Conan the Barbarian one?
Yeah, so he started talking about it, and you're like, oh wait, I wrote that.
David, he was actually telling me about that in the car the next day, about how much he loved that article, and that he was speaking with you and he had no idea that you were the one who had written it. Like, it really meant a lot to him. So that's cool that you shared that as well.
Yeah, actually, I had a special moment with him as well, in that it's kind of like this interesting thing where we were heading towards the docks, the sponge docks, and we decided not to go on the main road, and we went on one of the parallel roads, and it was almost like we entered into another space or another time. And it was just him and I were just talking. He was sharing about his, film and his art, and the, I think it was jujitsu studio that he's connected with. And then we come across this tree, and it's this giant, beautiful Florida oak tree with, the Spanish moss. But then it had these like drooping, they look like giant balls of, like, I don't know, like plants with flowers coming off. They were like otherworldly. It was like stepping into a Star Wars world or something. And we just had this moment of silence where it was like, this was totally unexpected. Just giant tree with these giant balls of plants growing off of them. And then we kept walking, and then a block later we got onto the main road. It's almost like this parallel universe.
So, yeah, I'll go this way. I heard a rumor that at the last bit of time, Jonathan called my name from the stage, and I wasn't there. And he called somebody else's name from the stage, and he wasn't there either. The other gentleman's name was Scott Baker. As it turns out, we were together. And so what that brought to my mind is, and I'm hearing this in many of the different pieces that are coming out, is the necessity of being guided by the Spirit. You know, it's really impossible, like in principle, for us to have any notion of how to actually do what's right in the world. You know, okay, I'll make a huge video and 1 million people will watch it, or I'll have one conversation with like a 2-year-old kid. Who knows? But God knows. So, you know, it may be that for David, like just that one person reading that one article was precisely the thing that needed to happen in the unfolding of the entire plan. And I feel very, how do you say, makes me relaxed, because I don't have to try to figure that kind of thing out. It's really just, is this something the Spirit is supporting me in doing? If yes, then do it. If not, then don't. Now, the first part, the question, how do you know? That's a much bigger problem, but that's a worthy problem to work out.
It's the adventurous part. You know, what you mentioned about unrecorded or uncaptured moments, it changes the dynamic of the interaction, you know, the conversation. It kind of reminds me of the movie that they came out with Ben Stiller, The Life of Walter Mitty. And in that, there's this moment where he's with this famous Times Magazine photographer, and they're at the top of the Himalayas, and they're looking for this, you know, elusive snow leopard. It's like, where's the snow leopard? Only a few people have taken pictures of it, and then they see it, and then one of the characters is like, oh my gosh, get a picture, and the photographer just sits there and he just beholds this mysterious creature, and he takes a big deep breath in. He's like, that was good. Let's go play some soccer. And I feel like there's so many of those moments that we got to share. Really, I was so grateful, Jordan, that you didn't go on stage, that you didn't go on stage, that you were just amongst us, and that shifted the dynamic to a deeper level. And it wasn't just you, but there was many others, and that was the surprising delight of those type of moments. I mean, maybe later we can get into some of the on-stage highlights, but you know, maybe we don't have to, because I think really there's something meaningful in that space as well, in that type of interaction that's uncaptured. It reminds me of liturgy, right? So like the difference between a liturgy that is, you know, recorded, whether in audio or video, and I don't know what you guys, but it changes how your presence in the room, how you engage. It's almost like this is a moment and it's happening. There will never be another one. As opposed to like when the talks, I had this moment of like, well, I know that they're recording it, you know, assuming that they don't have any technical issues, like they are recording this conversation, so I can always go back. And it changed how I engaged with those talks. It wasn't so much like a liturgical experience. It was almost like a lecture or something. Whereas a lot of the moments that we're describing were not, and it allowed me to, you know, cherish what was happening.
I brought a sound recorder to the event. I could have recorded anything, just in case to have it on hand, in case you know, maybe it'd be fun to get together and have like a live conversation with friends and record it for posterity. But that never was appropriate. I never was tempted to bring it out. I could have recorded anything, and like the conversation at the barbecues or anything like that, it would have ruined it. And I never thought once about recording anything. It was it's very special the way it was. We have some new guests on the line in the Kourtides house.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, James. You're still muted. Looks like we have some kiddos.
What are the kiddos' names?
Hold on, I was on mute. Go ahead, say it again.
Hi, Mr. Derek.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Where are you?
Where am I? I'm back home. I'm back home. Are you at home?
How's your kids?
My kids, they're outside playing in the dirt.
Want to see it?
This is
I'll
Elijah.
show you later,
this
buddy.
This is Adriana. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Wait, everybody who has kids, raise your hand. Okay, so on the next call, we all have to have our kids, and then we'll just go away.
That might be the next thing.
With Mark. Mark will be the in that phrase.
That's wonderful. David, are you with us, Mr. Flores?
Derek, why were you not
Yes.
talking when you were not when I was on you?
All right. David Flores, glad you popped in, man. We've been talking about you here and there.
Oh, really? Hope it was good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Very good stuff. Good to see you, man. So we're just wondering, are you back at it? Back at the drawing board? Well, like after coming back to the conference, what was life like?
Well, it was weird. I kind of compared to like trying to shove a genie into a bottle. Like it was definitely felt like it was like outside of time. And then it was just a really overwhelming experience. It's very strange to be like meet complete strangers and then immediately get involved in like crazy deep super conversations that aren't at the usual level. And like I was just really overwhelmed by like how good people were. I mean, it was just at that kind of volume, because it was just like everybody, and like you'd be in a conversation with somebody and then you're having like some like transformative conversation. You're like, oh, I'm David, by the way. And so it's just that was happening so often with nearly everybody that I think it was just that was just a kind of very, very overwhelming in a good way, but you just kind of to get on a flight and then go home. It's just like, what, like, where was I even at?
I got into a very deep conversation with a guy in the street who was just walking by, and we started talking deep about the symbolism of fracking, of petroglyphs in West Virginia, of all these things, and like 25 minutes into our conversation, I introduced myself and got his name. It was just like that.
Yeah, it was a delight for me because it felt like just an endless stream of podcasts, one-on-ones, big group podcasts, which is great because I post here and there, but it's never enough. Like I'm always like, anytime I'm engaging with someone, it's like, people need to hear it. This conversation, more people need to hear that. And so I've always feel like it's never enough, to post on, YouTube or wherever else. So that weekend was so great because of those moments that you just described, Cormac. It was just like, I felt very full. I was like, yes, I feel satisfied that I can meet this level of desire for conversation and podcasting.
The risk for me now is like forgetting. I know from experience, like my capacity for forgetting even meaningful relationships. It was meaningful encounters. I can just forget them over time. It's like a dream. The whole conference felt like a dream, but then it's at risk of being forgotten like a dream. So I'm like, I don't know if any of you guys journal or write. How do you handle these things? How do you keep from forgetting?
A few, are you guys familiar with the Estuary groups? Estuary?
Mm-hmm.
I know
so done by
yeah.
It's actually wonderful, and it's purposely not recorded. And we meet the first Wednesday of the first and the last week of each month. and it's usually 8 to 10 to 12 people, and it's people from all over the world really that are starting these estuary groups. And estuary is a place where salt water meets fresh water, right? And that's where interesting things happen. So it's people that are part of the church, people that are outside the church, people that are inquiring. And we meet, and they're wonderful conversations. I mean, they're as close to as personal conversations as you can get on the internet, and they're purposely not recorded. If you guys are interested, I'll send you the link. I'll send you a link. Maybe you can send it to everybody, and you can pop on it. It's really Nate's on there. Paul Vanderclay, his kind of group set up. I don't know if you know about the Chino conference that they had recently that Jonathan Pageau was at, and a few of the guys were. Who else was out there? John Vervaeke was there giving a talk. Yeah, so it's really great. And we met just this last Wednesday, and the topic of the group, everybody wanted to know the debrief from the Symbolic World Conference, and we kind of continued some of those discussions, but it's really cool. And the goal is to have them in person. So I started an estuary group in Central Florida. Haven't been able to get off the ground yet. Some of the groups, like in Texas and Pennsylvania, they have a group of 8 to 10 people that meet once a month, something like that, and just meet in person and chat for 2 hours. That's it. It's not recorded at all. So it's something that maybe would help kind of in the continuation. Very cool.
Yeah. I wonder what that would look like to do like a Symbolic World Estuary collaboration. I know getting to know Nate and his work with Grail Country and Estuary got me really thinking about, maybe like what we just had was like an international version and we do it every couple of years. But what if we did like regional ones? Like we just put, if we're in the States, like the Northwest or like Central, what if we met in Denver? What if we met in Portland area? What if we met in, San Diego or something? Or England, I know people on the other side of the world would love to get together as well. And the way that he was describing it was that like a much more, it wasn't such a heavy lift as what they had to pull with this international gathering.
Well, this is what my church is like after liturgy on Sundays. We just sit around and talk for as long as we can before we have to go. It's great, but it's not a lot of conversations like this. My friends at church like read my articles and like, Michael, your articles are really like they have a hard time getting through them. So it's we have these online communities where we have like minds that can have like conversations, but I find it very useful and extremely useful in church to get out of that like mind and talk with people on in different ways, different topics. And I've found recently, like the conversations that I'm having at my parish on Sunday after liturgy, it's inspiring me. It's telling me what it is that I need to write what next for my Substack. It's giving me the clues for what I need to do, even though it might not be we might not be figuring out the symbolism of fracking. It's still really good, and it feels like it's doing what James, you're describing as the estuary.
Yeah, I suppose there's 2 ways to bridge, like in this case. It can be taking people who are online and then doing something in person, like we just did, or doing something more regional, like Derek is saying. But you can also try to do something bottom up, where you try to take groups that you already know locally and try to bring symbolism into it, like Cormac is doing.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are welcome to go backpacking with me if you'd like. Mountains are a good place for symbolic reflection.
I'm teaching Sunday school, and I'm kind of interested to know if these little kids are going to grow up into these Pageauvian galaxy brains. I don't know if it'll work out. I'm trying though.
Yeah, really like a cradle Pageau symbolic world structure.
By the way, God willing, my house should be finished in about a year. And so if any of y'all feel called to come up to the mountains of Appalachia, we'll have some extra rooms, and we'll be able to break bread with y'all. Anybody's invited.
Wow. We're in Appalachia.
Awesome.
Just at the foot of Black Mountain in about 20 minutes east of Asheville.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Sounds beautiful.
I'm in the
Mhm.
Appalachians in Pennsylvania, in the Allegheny Mountains.
You could just get yourself a walking stick and walk along a ridgeline. You'll find your way.
I could.
That'd be pretty good. Your beard would get real, particularly get some moss growing in there.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm wondering what was some of the standout moments from the stage, so whether something that the speakers said, thoughts that were provoked based on what they were saying.
For me personally, actually, one of the most, and I think I mentioned this to you guys a couple of days ago, but one of the most touching moments for me was actually when Jonathan brought his wife up on stage. I think it was on the last day. He kind of thanked her. It was really great seeing his whole family there supporting him and mingling and speaking with some of the other attendees. But that was a really powerful moment because you could just see how much the whole event meant to Jonathan and to his family. And then getting to see them share that really personal moment was just, it was very beautiful.
Yeah, I think the talk by De Young on the resurrection of the body, I'm going to revisit it probably the next 2 days because I didn't it didn't land completely for me, but there was a lot of pieces for it that got me thinking. So that one was provocative title, and the content did not let down. So I don't know what do you guys think of that talk?
Let's talk about that when you finish. I'm going to do the same thing. It's
Yeah.
It's like it's sitting on me. It's just like waiting for me to spend more time with it.
Yeah, metabolize like maybe half of it, if that. So yeah.
Yeah, same thing. Especially since I don't like a lot of you guys, I guess, like either we weren't in the faith or we fell off the faith. In my case, I fell off from Catholicism when I became a teen, and I came back later. The whole time I was not involved with the church or anything. I was deep in Nietzsche. So for me, it resonated particularly well. So I think I'm gonna reread Nietzsche and then go back for the Young talk and really try and digest it.
If Father Stephen brought the goods, I listened to Lord of Spirits and the whole Council of God. I love it. I've never heard him speak like this before. He knew he was in a new context and he was adapting, and it was conjectural. I've never heard him so conjectural, but in a positive way. A positive, pious use of conjecture that is really, really constructive. The way so much of the conversation is trying to try to figure out how time and eternity go together, and how they relate with each other. This is like the how like a through line in so many conversations, like when Pageau touches on how Christ creates the world from the cross. This what I call chiastic causality, how it fits in with linear causality, and how time and eternity are related with each other. And I feel like what Father Stephen was talking about was just a major contribution to that conversation. That's something I'm going to have to go back and listen to as well.
One of the things that I really appreciated was the throwback moment for me was when they had Peterson, Pageau, and Father Stephen DeYoung talking about sacrifice. And it just reminded me of some of the first biblical series talks that Peterson introduced. And I remember it was a very almost like a physical flashback, because I remember listening to that series late spring, early summer, where I had to do a lot of weed whacking. Golden California hills, they also they're like kindling for fire, so you have to weed whack it down so you're not at risk of fire. And so I had to do many hours of that. And so what I would do is I would put on the biblical series and listen to that, and it made me enjoy my time of weed whacking, because I was like time to myself. I could think, I kind of get into this rhythmic motion of back and forth. And that was always one of the things I appreciated about Peterson from that time, was how he just one baby step at a time started with this very simple sacrifice of, where you direct your eyes, what your attention is. You're sacrificing other things you could be looking at, all the way to the ultimate sacrifice. And so it was like throwback to original Peterson talk, and that reminded me of early days of meeting you guys, many of you here. And then it got me really excited because then it was like the new version of it in the context of this dialogue with an Orthodox priest, and took those concepts to the next level. It felt like almost like a comprehension, or like a full circle of that topic.
I wish Jordan would have engaged a little bit more with Father Stephen on that, though, because he kind of went off on his typical sacrifice stuff, which is good, but the kind of next part of the sacrifice, like, because it's not all about giving up, like the kind of communal part of sacrifice that Father Stephen DeYoung kind of talks a lot about, Lord of Spirits. That's a huge missing component that also is like a huge shift in understanding about the kind of guilt-laden connotation with sacrifice. Like, there's a really good book that my book club read called Welcoming Gifts, and it's by an Orthodox monk that really goes into the sacrifice and how much of it is relational. And at the end of the day, it's a meal. And when you look at the whole categories and the whole system of how it is, it really requires a lot more, it requires a lot more engagement with it, other than just, yes, you're giving something up, but who you're giving it up to and how that transforms you, and the body that you create in that meal with the higher purpose and what that points to. I kind of wish they'd have had a little bit more back and forth on that when it came to that particular part of the talk.
Yeah, and to your point a bit, what do we, I think as Richard Rowland said, the only God that I believe in is the one that I go and eat every Sunday. And what do we do at liturgy? What are the priests doing during liturgy? They're preparing the sacrifice to feed the parishioners. And what we do at the end of liturgy is we eat from the body and the blood of Christ. And in doing so, we become his body, where it's the inverse. We eat from the food of the earth and we incorporate that food. It becomes part of our identity. But the inverse happens when you go to church and liturgy. At the end of liturgy, after you pray, and during the liturgies, there's a special moment. I don't know if it should be spoken about, or even about the Eucharist, where after the anaphora, where the blood and the body is consecrated, Christ comes down, and there's this moment of deep repentance that you feel at church. It's really like nothing else. It's the only time where I really can get the tears of repentance, actually, where it's almost overwhelming. And it lasts for about maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And then you just gather yourself enough to take communion, right? And then during communion, you're eating bread and wine, it's materially bread and wine, but it's also the body and the blood of Christ. What is going on there is, it's a mystery, right? But does that mean you shouldn't inquire? Is it a sin to really inquire there? So that's something that kind of came up for me as well.
Well, and that's where the Nietzsche talk, I felt, that it's talking about the same thing in a way. I don't really know how to express the intuition I have about the eternal joy and all of it, but the pattern definitely seems like nested together when it comes to, but communion's the Eucharist is like everything. You can't to wrap your brain around it is just impossible. It's so big. Yeah.
What did you guys think about the Martin Shaw talk? What was it like, experiencing story time with Martin Shaw?
I think that was one of my favorites. Just I don't think I appreciated how much storytelling could be an art, like live storytelling like that, until I saw that. It was just really, really impressive the way that he was able to kind of command your attention, to pace things, to inject humor in a way. And one thing I liked was how he would play with parts of the story, so that the fairy tale wasn't just a nostalgic kind of thing about a land like long ago, but he would kind of, throw in a joke about like not turning something into an app in the fairy tale. And it kind of, I think that was like a clever trick to use humor to, but also to make the fairy tale become something kind of timeless in that proper sense, because and show how it applied to like more modern questions. But yeah, that was definitely the one that kind of I was most impressed by, was Martin Shaw's storytelling.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
get a
like it.
chance to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I do have to go soon, so I'll make it brief. I like Marceau's talk as a counterexample to the Nietzschean talk, where it's an example of storytelling is specifically and deliberately linear. Like it has to be linear. It's entirely embodied in time. The way these stories work, and it's so it's interesting how that corresponds with Father Stephen's talk. Just the example of embodiedness in time, and it's just a really weird story too that I had trouble following the structure of. I'd be interested in hearing it again and thinking about it more. But I do have to run to church, so it's been delightful. Hope to talk to you guys again soon.
Thanks, Cormac.
Hey, Cormac. I got to run too,
Bye, man.
guys.
Okay.
I got to run too,
James.
guys. Good to see you guys. God bless y'all. Thank you.
See you, James.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cameron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I didn't get a chance to speak with Martin, unfortunately, one-on-one over the weekend. I would have loved to, because based off of everything I've heard from him, he is just one of the most interesting men I've ever come across. I'm pretty sure he's some kind of like cosmic time traveling bard or something, because the number of stories that he has memorized just in his head, and the way he can deliver them with such passion, like they're so real, they're so living, coming through him. And yeah, I would just love to sit down with Martin and pick his brain, and I could listen to him tell me bedtime stories every night, to be honest with you. But he
Is that a
he
thing?
was
Does he
definitely.
have that?
I
Like,
wish. I mean,
story time with Martin, like 4
he
hours
could.
of it.
That's a speaking of apps, I mean, that's a $1 million idea right there. But he was probably one of the more inspiring speakers for me, just because feeling how much his storytelling was having an impact on me at the conference made me want to be able to provide that for other people. I'm not sure if any of you had a similar experience, but one of the things I've actually been trying to do since I came back from the conference is telling like very short stories to my children. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So 1.5-year-old doesn't really understand what I'm saying, but the 3.5-year-old kind of can a little bit. And so being able to practice storytelling with my kids is something that I've really been trying to take away from the conference and embody into my life. And I'm so bad at it. Like I'm really not a very good oral storyteller, but Martin's giving me a little bit of hope that I can improve over time. So yeah, he's just fantastic.
Wanted to give
You're
a
just-
shout out
that's
to
great.
Nicholas Kotar. So I picked up this book. This is one of the books that got me in trouble with my wife from spending too much in a Certain Kingdom. And we started by reading Peter and the Grey Wolf, and we read it as a family. And so I feel it too, Cameron, that I'm improving my storytelling skills, and I think children, are a great way, a great place to do that. The other one is we started reading through the Bestiary too. My kids really like this from Hugh, and so then the other thing that we started doing too was reenacting the stuff that we would watch. And so my children are really into David and Goliath. That's my son's favorite right now, is David. And so we try to come up with these like little, 2 to 5 minute plays where we reenact the story together. It's like, you be David, you be Saul, you be Goliath. And then we come up with like a 3-act play. But yeah, so like if it's not so much that you could just deliver, without reading, without notes, without anything, just like be a person delivering a story through a body. It's very powerful. But to work your way up to it, maybe pick up books like these and read it and get into the reading of the story, and then soon maybe we can together get to a place where we could tell it, in the same delivery as, or similar delivery as Martin Shaw.
and kids are more forgiving too. Like you can tell it badly to the kids and they'll be all right. Like, I mean, I know when I got home, it was like, I couldn't do it the first night. I was just too worn out. But the next night I told them the no song story. And then Martin it's really interesting because he did like a mini lecture on how to tell a story if you were paying attention. Like he didn't really get into it, but he talked about how you can stretch a story. And I was like, oh, as a teacher, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like I have to stretch time sometimes. Like and so what can you do? Well, you can do certain things to give yourself more time, or you can cut stuff off to shorten it. And you could see he was doing that with Firebird story. There was moments where he expanded, and then you could have retold the same story, but then cut off parts of it. And then with No Song, he told us like, it's a fox. He's like, but you're in the South, so a coyote. So I said that it was a coyote. And then telling to my kids, so I think it's hilarious that he had a cigarette, but I was like, I had a toothpick. So you can just kind of, there's different things that you can play with. And like what you were saying, Mark, about the app thing, I thought it was interesting how it was kind of it was so in the moment too. Like that was what was interesting to me about the story. Like if something's written, the idea of like a canon, or like this is the right version of the story. Well, if it's written, that makes so much sense. But then if you're telling the story, that kind of subtle variation for this particular audience, and the kind of immediacy of the story, and how it won't be told the same way again. There's something to that I think it was all really on full display there when he was doing it.
And I feel
go ahead, David.
one of sorry, yeah. I feel it's both a curse and a blessing for me and JP. And JP will know later when you start looking at books for Christopher. But everything that's happening around, let's say, Symbolic World and so on and so forth, is all Anglosphere. And so for us, there is, I cannot pick up Snow White and read it to my daughter because it's in English. She speaks French, and so on and so forth. So all the good stuff, all the Nicolas Cotard stuff, all that stuff, it's just not available for us to tell to our kids. So it's kind of a curse in a sense, but at the same time, I feel after listening to Martin Shaw and what he had to say, it's actually a blessing because it forces us to either come up with our own stories or actually just go by purely oral tradition. Either, I'm going to read a story in English and then I'm going to have to digest it in my head and then make an oral transmission of it to my kid, or it's going to be, something similar. But we don't have, quote unquote, the problem of, following the canon of the book for the story and so on and so forth. I mean, there are some books about fairy tales and so on, but they're kind of hard to find to be in a proper format where they're actually meant to be told and they're not too cleared up of all the stuff that actually makes up fairy tales. Like Martin Shaw said, we shouldn't domesticate fairy tales. And a lot of children books, they actually domesticate them, and so it's unusable. So
yeah, to embody it. I mean, who better to hear these stories through than fathers, mothers? And someone mentioned, David, you mentioned the Phoenix. It was fascinating to me how the Phoenix would come up in multiple talks. First night, okay, so, or the Firebird, right? So the new album that Dirt Poor Robins came out with was Firebird, and they had this giant Firebird in the back of the stage. But then in the art track, so Father Silouan and Jonathan Pageau, part of their slideshow were these beautiful pictures of Firebirds. And then it just seemed like it kept coming up and up and up. Anybody else notice that?
I'm pretty sure Martin Shaw had a completely different story he was going to tell. Because if you look at the pamphlet, it was something like the Wolf Rider or something like that. And then it was about the Firebird story. So, yeah. And then reclaiming the cosmic image, I don't know, those two are interconnected somehow that I haven't been able to put in my brain yet.
I'm going to need to go, guys. So,
yeah. Why don't we wrap
you.
it up, guys? JP, are you still walking your child?
Yeah. I'm keeping him asleep artificially. I think if I was to stop, he would wake up. So I'm gonna stop, and he's gonna wake up. But it was worth it to talk to you guys, and he doesn't sleep enough, so it's good for him.
Great, love you, JP. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks
Bye, guys.
everyone for showing up. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
too.
Okay, guys, great talk. Appreciate you guys. Look forward to what's coming up.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you next time, guys.
Okay, bye-bye, guys.